Good morning and welcome. Welcome to Building the Innovation Economy, Emerging Technologies, Startups, and Venture. We want to thank each of you for joining us this morning. We know you had a choice and we're delighted that you chose to be with us. We have a great hour together and it is my sincere pleasure to represent Angel Investors Ontario as your moderator and delighted to be here with our panel and each of you online. My name is Frank and I'm joined by Ian, Anthony, Hadrien, and Ryan, representing some of the most innovative startups, entrepreneurs, innovators that are delivering game-changing solutions for the building and infrastructure industry. Each will share a short video, their journey, their story, and provide words of wisdom that you can apply to your business in the building and innovation economy. We also want to have some fun today and make it interactive. So after the four presentations, I will ask a couple of questions to get things going. So please chat along with us. You can chat publicly or just with the panel. And the last 15 minutes will be reserved for you to answer any questions and as many as we can. I am so excited to be here to learn a little bit more about these companies. So please, let's get started with Ian and Yulio.
Thanks, Frank. Good morning, everybody. I'm Ian Hall. I'm the co-founder and chief of product over at Yulio Technologies. So as Frank said, we're really here to talk about our startup journeys, kind of the business side, how we got here. But to give you a little bit of context, I'm going to play you a quick video. It's going to give you a little bit of background on what we've been up to for the last few years. So with that, let me just go flip over.
Work in architecture and design, chances are communicating your vision to clients is one of your biggest challenges. Spatial visualization is difficult for most people, and they probably say things like, "I'm just not seeing it," a lot. So where is the disconnect? Right now, you probably use a combination of images, words, and even 3D models to share your ideas. And your clients may not give you much feedback because they don't actually understand what they're looking at. They may not know how to interpret your design or even where they are inside the model or sketch. So they lack confidence to make decisions and ask for additional meetings and double-check things with you over and over, trying to gain confidence in your vision and will make it their own. We're Yulio, a platform that makes virtual reality a practical, everyday business tool to remove the ambiguity between your vision and your client's perception. We're the difference between telling your clients about design and putting them inside it to experience it. It will help you communicate things faster, give your clients greater confidence, and speed up the time it takes you to see positive ROI. If you use images to tell stories today, you can use Yulio to tell them better. Create a shared understanding between you and your client with the tools you already use. Yulio works with the photography or CAD tools you already use to help you author VR experiences, simply. You can enhance your design by adding hotspots. They give your clients gaze-to-go navigation between scenes. You can also add audio files to annotate your design, or bring it to life with ambient sounds. You can use Yulio's Collaborate feature to share and present your design to clients. It live streams VR, so your clients can join your presentation from anywhere. And whether they are using VR headsets or a browser to view the design, they'll have less difficulty translating your vision into reality and give you better quality feedback. It works on all browsers.
All right, we're not here to look at Yulio. Hopefully that gives you a good idea what we're all about. It does a bunch of other stuff as well. But you're here to listen to a bit of a journey, so let me dive into that. As you see from that, Yulio is a platform. It's used by Gensler, Elliston, Steelcase, big architecture firms, product firms to help communicate their design vision. So how did we get there? So a bit of background for me personally, I'm actually an electrical engineer by training, but I've spent most of my career as a product strategist and designer. About going 18 years ago or so, I got together with my first partner, an absolutely brilliant software designer that I'd worked with in a previous startup. We started our own design and development consultancy that we built up into a successful practice over the years. Actually, interesting side note from that. We originally met at a startup that was doing imaging technology. We were one of the first in the world to do cloud-based imaging, and that platform got bought out by Adobe eventually. So anyways, fast forward to about 4 years ago, we had a thriving business. We had a strong bench. We have a very strong background in imaging technology, both in the 3D and the 2D world. And as there ever is, what's the disruption? it turns out that having a long, successful business career, you end up building a fair number of contacts. You build a rich network. So we've done a number of different projects with another partner. So we've done some small partnerships, some custom development work with another entrepreneur with a company called KISP. So KISP was a leading software and services provider into the commercial furniture industry, which obviously overlaps a lot with the whole architecture and design world. So the catalyst was we knew these folks, we got along great with them, we'd done some work with them, and then VR technology suddenly became cost effective. So you've got the mobile technology drove the hardware cost down, and suddenly this was looking to be commercially viable in a relatively reasonable time horizon. So we dove in. We've been looking for VR to become practical, frankly, for ages. We saw that, and we got together with this partner. We formed a new company as a partnership. We funded it ourselves, and the mission was to bring VR to the masses, and that's what you were just looking at. So coming into the seminar, it was kind of interesting just looking back 4 years ago and thinking about that inception and kind of the key ingredients going into that, because obviously it's a big decision. So there were a few key elements I just wanted to share with you that went into that decision. First, we had a big, hairy problem to solve. Trying to improve how you communicate complex ideas in the design world has been kind of the holy grail forever. We thought we had a pretty innovative way of solving it. We knew it was a difficult problem. It was not something that could easily be tackled by somebody who didn't have a fair amount of technical and business sophistication, and we were confident that we had the skill set. We also had an existing customer base, so we had some folks that we could go try ideas out very quickly. We had funding, so we had successful businesses that we were able to tap into, so we were able to rapidly spend our own money and go kind of test some theories out. But frankly, the most important thing out of all of that, we had a great team. We had a great group of people, and that was really the nexus. That's our story in a nutshell. Frank, back over to you.
Well done, Ian. Thank you for sharing a little bit of, giving us a little bit of view into your journey. By the way, this is why usually we don't have any video showing at pitch events, because you just never know if it's going to work or not. So apologies for any technical difficulties this morning. All right, awesome. Thank you, Ian. Over to Anthony.
Yeah, hi, folks.
And Hypar.
Yeah, hi, folks. I'm Anthony Hauck. I'm the COO and co-founder of Hypar. And I'm usually kind of a slide guy, but I sort of did a mix here. So I'm going to play a different video here for you and just talk over it while it plays, because it has no sound. So this is us. So we were founded in 2018. My partner Ian Keogh and I founded Hypar for reasons I'll get into. Ian's claim to fame is creating Dynamo, which runs on top of Revit. I ran Revit for a number of years at Autodesk, so sorry about that. And Matt, our CTO, is also a Revit developer. And why did we start? Well, we have a conviction that we've been building stuff for a really long time and computing for about 75 years. And we've been trying to use those two things together for about 50 years. And we think you should be able to start with something better than a blank piece of paper when you begin a new project. And so what that looks like here, Andrew Human, one of our engineers, is going to put together a workflow on Hypar while we watch at high speed here. So we're picking a location on Earth, in this case in Manhattan, and then selecting a module that will let somebody lay out the building footprint. And from that, we'll generate a building envelope and then start building up the whole structure by adding in modules that contribute their own pieces to the proposal. So facade, structure, floors, levels, and that sort of thing. And finally, we'll throw in one more analysis piece here to let you know that if you're going to rent something on one of the lower loser floors, you get a tiny glimpse of Central Park. But if you'll just spring for the penthouse, you'll get this beautiful view as you go to work every day. And so, what we are is a cloud platform for generating building designs from crowdsourced expertise. So all the modules you saw are examples that we created, but we're an open platform that anybody can put their own expertise on to combine. And the way that works here is that we have functions that take inputs and they produce things that go into buildings like structures. those functions combine into what we call workflows, and those produce results. And every one of those modules can be swapped out for something else that does it that produces in a different way. All this works because we have an open source library that represents building data that is also extensible without talking to us. And we can do stuff like this. Like we can talk to Revit. We can bring in a model from Revit here, drop it into our web interface. And that itself is its own function that converts into the Hypar environment. And then what's also happened under the hood here is that other functions have first panelized the walls and then framed them out. So we can actually cover all kinds of different workflows from construction, design, building products, and et cetera. Here, this is in beta right now, where we're actually streaming results from things like this right into the Revit environment. So we'll make a change on the right, and that's going to actually stream down to the desktop through something called the Hypar Hub, and give it a couple of seconds to update, and you'll see the updated framing there.
Wow.
So there's a bunch of different ways that you can get stuff onto Hypar. Here we're using a Grasshopper script. Everything I've mostly showed you has been written in C#, but we have a package of Grasshopper nodes that you can use to tie the perimeter of your script into Hypar elements. And here one of our engineers is just grabbing the Grasshopper script and dragging and dropping it right into the interface again. A couple of seconds of processing, it's turned into a Hypar function, and now you can combine it with the other stuff. So you'll remember that envelope drawing thing that we had. And so engineer here is going to draw out a quick envelope for a building, generate a structure, and then that Grasshopper script is now wrapping that facade in the rainbow colors that was generated inside Rhino. So you can combine this stuff from different sources, including Excel. So we have the capability that if you label up some input and output cells in Excel, you can also drag that into Hypar, and we will turn that into a function as well, because we know that there's a lot of expertise in the industry that's buried inside Excel spreadsheets. We used to laugh that was like our biggest competition at Autodesk was Excel for engineering. And so this way, you don't have to actually go find a programmer to figure out how to translate that into something that you can use on the web. You can actually just drag and drop it in with a little preparation and do something like this kind of toy example about figuring out the ROI on some real estate. So that's it. For a little background on us, I know we'll be talking about investment here. We actually just closed our second round of investment, and we can go deeper into the details there on who we work with on that side and why. And so looking forward to the discussion.
Terrific. Thank you, Anthony. You know what? When I was asked to moderate this, I did a little research, and I kind of didn't take me long to realize that there's a lot of collaboration with talent in this ecosystem, and that there's an opportunity for collaboration even with the companies that are on stage right now to do some things together. And so kudos to you, Anthony, and this is terrific. As an investor, I love looking at technology. To be quite frank, sometimes I don't understand it as much as I should, but which will lead me to our first question when we get going. Okay, so terrific. Now we're going to head over to Hadrien. Hadrien is with SmartPixel. Hadrien, are you with us?
Well?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, I think the camera I'm using is trying to stream in 4K, so there's drops. If there's any issues, I'm sorry, and I'll try to find a solution. So anyways, but I can hear you very, very well. So thank you very much. I'm glad to be on this panel. I'm Hadrien. I'm the founder of SmartPixel. It's a company who's been founded in 2009. Me and my associates are very oriented towards arts and digital arts, mostly real-time 3D. So we use Unity, which is a gaming engine, to create powerful and very wow factor experiences to help real estate developer sell their units before their buildings are actually built. So throughout this user experience, we're able to push sales much faster. A lot of our clients love to use our solutions because they say that using our software, they can actually sell up to 75% of their assets within the first 30 days that they are put on the market. So we've worked with developers mostly in Montreal, of course, a lot, but in Toronto, Vancouver, in the United States, in France, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Vienna. So we have a big amount of big portfolio of developers we work with. I don't have a video in our presentation. That's why I wanted to have a good camera. I have behind me a touch video wall. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what is the usual user experience. I hope it's going to look great on the screen. So basically, we model not only the buildings, but also the entire city. So here you can see this is the city of Montreal. And you can see pins that are floating on different properties on which I want to actually showcase content. So I have something here that we call the sun slider, which enables you to change the sun's position in the sky. So this is a very cool feature when you want to come up with wow factor experiences. And let's say I'm going to select this building 23. So once it's selected, the camera is actually going to zoom onto it. In this type of user experience, because every time we do different content, it might be different a little bit. So here I can actually read information about this project. I can look at pictures, videos, look at the partners that are on the project. So there's a lot of things we can do here in that pop-up. But what's great is when I click again on the building, and you can see the reflections and everything is made in real time. Very, very photorealistic. Mm-hmm. So once I select the building, I'll have some boxes that will show me the different apartments or units that are corresponding to my search criteria. And depending on the applications we do, there's also sometimes filters that enable you to actually filter the type of unit you want to use. So in this case, I don't have it here. Then I can look at the floor plans of the units of the building, and then I can open up, for example, the plans of the unit that I've selected. So it really helps me search, filter different units, look at the plans, and of course, understand the environment that I'm looking at. So one other important thing is I can actually travel around the world like this. So I could go, for example, to Dubai. And part of SmartPixel's ambition is really to recreate a kind of a Google Earth so that we can actually place SimCity professionally inside our planet and add different buildings in different locations to actually help visualizing, but also understanding different parts of cities and urban development. So that sums up a little bit of what we do.
Thank you very much, Hadrien. For our audience, we could literally spend an entire hour with each of these companies and just drill down into so much. But our objective here today is just to sort of share some of this innovation, entrepreneurship, forward thinking that is going on. And so far, we're delivering, and I'm ecstatic about that. Like I said, I love innovation. It does seem to me that, again, back to the collaboration. I'm still used to grabbing, buy my first house, where you go to a sales site, they give you that book, everything looks the same. And then when you build it, oh, this is what I bought. So God, we have come a long way. So terrific. Thank you very much for sharing that out with us, Hadrien. All right, Ryan, last but certainly not least, over to Ryan and CadMakers.
Thanks very much, Frank. Just going to share my screen. I am a slide guy, so I'm going to go with some slides here. All right, let me know if you guys can see my screen.
We're good, Ryan. We're just loading.
Okay. Beautiful. So hi everyone. My name's Ryan. I'm growth manager at CadMakers. Thanks for joining today. If you'd like to connect, my contacts are at the bottom of the screen below. So similar to a lot of the great companies that presented today, we also started as a bootstrap project services company. Although we're focusing on developing digital twins for construction, we adopted a blue ocean strategy using aerospace and manufacturing software instead of the typical AEC stack, which helped us produce digital fabrication outputs for a wide variety of project services or building components. And over the last 7 years, we've had the really great opportunity to work with over 450 a bunch of great companies on over 450 projects valued at over $45 billion. And from that experience, we've learned a lot about the space and the intimate understanding of where the industry challenges are and the existing gaps in technology. And that's where we started to productize or complement our project services with SaaS products. So this year we came out with two products as part of our CM Core suite of products, and they're completely browser-based leapfrog technologies. So the first one is CM Builder, a dynamic construction planning and simulation software. And then the next is CMEXE, a building material production optimization and tracking platform. These products, as I mentioned, are completely browser-based and built from the ground up on a unified cloud database. That means there's no need for getting IT permissions or installing software. Even the 3D model viewers that we use are in-house developed. So we're not leveraging any existing company's tech. So that allows us to pass off the savings to our customers and promote a much needed collaboration within the industry. So we're offering unlimited users included for each software subscription under one price. Getting into a little bit of details of CM Builder, in the industry, we've seen a lot of amazing parametric design tools like, what we just saw with Hypar. But a lot of these tools are for architects and engineers. However, we've discovered that there aren't many tools for builders. So we found that we wanted to create a design for construction tool. So a lot of companies in pre-construction general conditions, contractors will use 4 to 6 different disconnected software, none of which really have any prevailing 3D underlying technology being leveraged. So we created this design for construction planning and simulation platform with contractors for contractors. And ultimately, we have the hope that we're trying to lower the barrier of entry for anybody to go digital in the construction industry. Using CM Builder, contractors can create their site layout. So right here, we're showing the site layout being generated. It's parametric and generative company resource catalogs. You can plug in your associated cost database and do 3D, 4D, and 5D parametric modeling and planning all in the web. In addition to this, they can simulate their construction sequence and milestones and auto-sync resources to a Gantt chart, which allows them to do the 5D planning and ultimately tally the costs associated based on timelines. We can take inputs from our customers to do excavation planning all in the web, something that contractors really didn't have the tools to do before. We included custom-built machine learning solvers with CM Assist that optimize the best crane placement location and use optical character recognition on 2D drawings. And at any point in time, what we really think is going to change the game is to allow customers to actually share a link with their collaborators or with their customers to ultimately bring a more customer-centric approach to the way construction projects are delivered. So lastly, I'm just going to share quickly CMEXE. We worked with we identified a large a number of disconnected technology workflows causing communication silos. And this really kind of breaks down in a process where once you go from design to a fabrication process, a lot of it, what we were seeing was paper-based. And this potentially could cause a lot of schedule overruns. So we identified that we first need to collect discrete tracking data. So along every single portion of the process, we're collecting data and then visualizing it over a 3D model in the web. And we're doing this by connecting the digital to the physical using QR codes. So when you scan a QR code, a worker can retrieve any of the information that's required to do their job. And then once they have completed their task, they can actually update that status and communicate the progress and leave a detailed log of what they've done. And then lastly, they can visualize and share that with their teammates and customers, either visualized over a 3D model or a BIM model or over a dashboard to understand data and analytics. So we're really trying to, again, bring this connection between the factory and the construction site and really enable design for construction. Thanks. I'm going to get into a little bit of the details of our business and kind of the background in the questions, but hopefully you guys got an understanding of where we're at as a business and a little bit of our background. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ryan. When they first asked me if I can moderate this, I have to be quite honest, I was a little nervous because, while I'm Italian, it doesn't mean that I'm an expert in the construction space, but I love investing. I have 2 or 3 in my portfolio right now that I'm working with Envision Integrated, Render Developments, CAFTech. Some of them I actually invested in. So I've learned a little bit more about this space. Ryan, that was a great example of the use of interconnected digital technologies. And what's really exciting to me is when I hear stories and journeys of, they were going to do X, Y, and Z, and then all of a sudden, oh, we could use it in this sector. So it seems to me that this can also be used in other sectors outside of the construction and design. So listen, I see technology every day. I belong to 7 angel groups. I'm passionate about investors. I love to see journeys come to fruition. Kudos to all of you and your organization. So let's get into some of the questions. Again, I asked the audience, jump in if you want to ask individual questions of our panel or myself, or chat amongst each other. But really, the one thing that I always like to ask is, hey guys, 1 minute each. When did you know? Because everybody uses the word traction. When did you guys know at your organization that what you had, or you have rather, was it? Like, when did you know? What was that aha moment that perhaps the audience can learn from? If you wouldn't mind taking a minute each, giving some feedback, that would be terrific. Thank you.
Who would you like to go first?
Let's do it in the order we did our videos. How about that?
Okay.
Sure. Okay, let me dive in. So we already had existing customers that we had done either development for, or we had software through another part of the business. And these were folks in the design community. We had architecture companies, interior design companies, commercial furniture. On the consulting side of our business, we are huge proponents of lean startup methodologies. We always push that approach to our customers. Don't invest in something until you've got some confidence in it and you've proven it out through kind of the least expensive means possible. So build fast, build cheap, fail fast, iterate quickly, and find that innovation. We did literally hundreds of hours of UX design, testing, prototyping, and field testing. And we built up that confidence. So we adapted, and those early adopters eventually this was kind of changing how they were doing business, and we had a winning formula. So it was there was no magic bullet there. It was through hard sweat, tears, a lot of back and forth. We are confident in the core idea, but it's not until you actually see it out there changing how people do business that you really have that confidence moment.
Well said. Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the question presupposes that we know we have it. We believe in it, and our investors believe in it. But I think actually this goes all the way back kind of to 2012, and folks who are involved in the industry probably remember that at the time, Autodesk was nattering on publicly quite a bit about unlimited computing and all this kind of stuff. And one of the things that I started to think about back then was, what's the intersection of unlimited computing and buildings? And it looked remarkably not like what I was working on then. As we worked on some projects in the AEC General Design Group in Autodesk and kind of thought further on this, we could see the potential in going beyond the idea of what you can do on the desktop and actually what you could do natively if you just thought of the cloud as your operating system, and the different kind of environment and opportunities that affords. And so I guess the other intersection with what we saw the changes in technology were watching 40 years of giant companies do their best to try to comprehensively serve everybody's needs, and just watching them fail with tons and tons of money. Not that they failed as companies, but they couldn't address everybody's needs. And so I think the intersection for us conceptually was that if you're to address the problems in AEC, you cannot do it as if you're coming with all the answers. But the best next thing you can do is to provide a forum where lots of people can provide lots of answers. So for us, I mean, as far as kind of the uptake in the community, and we actually even have an investor group that comes directly from the community. So we see that kind of traction. So whether we're it or not, we think we're on the right trajectory as far as marshaling the industry to improve itself.
Thank you. Well said, Anthony. Thank you so much.
All right. So when did we knew we had it? I think, so just going back a little bit, SmartPixel in the early beginnings for the first 5 years was a one-man show. I was mostly working by myself, and it was very orientated towards communication tools, marketing tools, using technology being mostly large format touchscreens. I had nothing to do with BIM or architecture or real estate in the beginning. So when I met when we had the first request to do a real estate software, which was about 6 years ago, a little bit less, and then I met my current associates, and I saw that I could actually turn this whole potential knowledge and technologies into 3D real-time environment. This is where I really felt there was a huge potential for it. And quite fast, we scaled up. We had our first employees. We went from myself with my 3 actual partners. It happened really fast within a year. And then suddenly next year we were 10, and the year after we were 20. So just scaling up the company has been, for us, a challenge, of course, but has proven that there's a big demand on the market for this. We're currently just under 60 people. And counting. So it's, I think for me would be seeing the company scaling and the interest of the people around us, looking at us and at the technology we would be managing. That would be the motivation behind scaling, I'd say.
Thank you, Hadrien. Thank you. That was great advice to our listeners and anybody. It doesn't matter if you're in this sector or any startup in any other sector. Terrific. Ryan.
Great. Yeah. So we kind of had a similar journey. So in the project services side, it was pretty quick to understand just after the first project almost, where the people on site were really seeing the value of the issues that we were bringing to light. But kind of talking about our SaaS products or CM Core applications, really we were building those products for ourselves in many ways. Going through the trials and tribulations of using the existing tech stacks that were available, and trying to actually really deliver projects with what was available out in the market was challenging, and pulling our hairs out, at late nights kind of drives you to the point where you want to develop something yourself. And we're not necessarily, like Anthony said, we don't know if we exactly have it quite yet, but I think one of the driving factors is just when you have to, when a customer shares internally with their team, so like we have those share links, when they start to kind of, distribute those share links, and you're starting to see that activity is being really, promoted without any intervention from you, that's really when you start to see that you've gained the traction. So I would say that was the it portion for us.
And what a great feeling. As an investor, or a customer, I think our customers as well, I think they're always inspired on how the journey and how you got here. As an investor, people always say, what do you look for? The founders and the team, which you all spoke about, because the team is what puts everything together. Of course, the product, and then usually the financials, obviously being an investment. But here's some words that I wrote down as you guys were talking. The team, customer has to see the value. See the vision, focus on that vision, lean methodology, prove it, build it fast, build it cheap. Don't be afraid to not get it right the first time, and sometimes even several times. Test, confidence, but obviously our business has to scale in many aspects. So that's terrific. So listen, guys, when I did a little research on this ecosystem, I found that in talking to you, there definitely a lot of you used revenues from your services. And interesting, one of the investments that I made, that was exactly the model, but yet they still needed some funding. For those of you, I think Hadrien and Anthony, I believe you both received some funding. Just share a little bit of the experience, please, if you wouldn't mind, in a minute or two with our audience. And what can you let them know about the angel investor? And more importantly, why should investors pay attention to this sector? Please.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack in there, but okay. I'll do a shout out to our lead investor, Building Ventures. Literally, the first conversation we had, the first words out of my mouth were, "I don't want your money." And really that has been the tone of our relationship ever since, because what we wanted was their advice, because that particular organization is full of folks who spent a lot of years in AEC, and we were much more interested in their thoughts on, we have this idea, is it completely crazy, or do you think it might get some traction? Because, you know, we thought it was a good idea, but you really kind of need to test it against some industry veterans to see if you're, you know, not off the deep end, or if they know that it sounds like a great idea, but it will never work, right?
Right.
And that was kind of the first sanity check. So, you know, as far as investment goes, the first thing we look for is people with deep connections into the industry. And so, you know, earlier we were having a talk about angel investors. I will say this: we do have an angel syndicate that invests in us. We're actually especially proud of this group because they actually come out of the AEC industry.
Oh, cool.
And so these are folks who pooled their money in a angel list syndicate to invest in Hypar. They're called the Spatial Syndicate. And so, but again, deep roots in the industry. That's what we look for. Why should people look at the construction industry as a investment opportunity? I don't know. It's got like $12 trillion of money running through it every single year. It's utterly fragmented and hasn't increased in productivity in like 75 years. So over to you, Hadrien.
Yeah, I love hearing your story. It makes a lot of sense. Just a little bit like you, obviously, we're still a service business right now. Initially, my goal has always been to impress our customers and build really strong relationship. And 2 years ago, the investor we have is a strategic investor. He came to us basically saying that he wanted to diversify his portfolio, that he had a lot of upcoming projects in the next year, and you know, he would like to benefit from our service at a discounted rate, but that he could bring the company a little bit further. So initially, just by impressing our customer and really counting a lot on the customer relationship has led us to have this type of benefits. Now we are looking to raise another round of investment to actually pivot the company towards a SaaS business. So very much like you guys have, Anthony, Ryan, and Ian. And I'm just starting to look at this world, and it's a bit complex for us, especially because of the service business model wanting to pivot. There's been a lot of companies who failed doing that. I believe we're going to make it a success because we've proven we already have a lot of revenues also in that sense. But it's challenging always. So I think all the stories are good. But basically, I still hope that focusing on client satisfaction is something that will lead us to the next step.
Well said, Hadrien. Well said, Anthony. That is great advice. You know, Hadrien, you've spoken twice so far, and you keep talking about sales, and I applaud that. For people out there that are looking for funding, that don't have the same situation where perhaps you don't have the revenue from services, you know, my mentor is a gentleman named Angelo Del Duca. Angelo used to be with the National Research Council, and I love him dearly. And he and I mentor a lot, and we always say, you know, focus on the customer. You're going to find that the money is a lot easier to come if you're raising money. And I applaud the fact that you also want to make sure that you have people that can bring you great value. One of the big misconceptions about angel investors is that it's about the return. It really isn't. If that's the case, I wouldn't be around, because, you know, I have a few exits in a portfolio of 20 plus a couple of funds. But what is interesting is that there is a direct correlation between customer and raising funds. And if you can get even, some of you I know also had a customer become an investor, that's pretty awesome as well, right? So kudos to you. So listen, I'm going to dive a little deep into this industry. So we know the pandemic has only accelerated the shift from traditional design and construction. Anthony, you spoke about it, and all of you have actually touched on it. Real big time data, agile decision making, accelerated schedules, repeatability, predictability, digital tweening. By the way, I didn't even know what digital tweening was until I researched the heck out of it. I guess my question to you is, what are you doing specifically right now, perhaps, that you can share with the audience, if it's not too confidential, to really seize this opportunity and the monster size of this total addressable market? If you wouldn't mind taking a minute each, just maybe perhaps giving that one thing, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure, let me kick it off. So needless to say, in the early days of the pandemic, there weren't enough sterilizing wipes in the world for people to share VR headsets, which was the most common way that our technology was being used in person. Devices would be kind of sent to customers as well, but that came to a grinding halt kind of overnight. The problem was still there to be solved, and things have obviously kind of shifted now. But in those early days, there was an opportunity to adapt to the situation. That's exactly what we did. So we already had a collaboration tool that would work in person and remotely. We doubled down on that. We accelerated certain things in our roadmap to really enhance storytelling, because suddenly everybody wanted to be able to tell stories without having that human connection of being there in person. So we saw a huge spike in business around that, and we had adapted to it, as I said. We also saw new markets that we had like on our business plan 3, 4, 5 years down the road suddenly come a knocking. Like we've done VR platforms now for art galleries, for yacht manufacturers who are trying to sell these $100,000, gorgeous wake boats, and they can't get anybody to go into a physical showroom. So we built an entire virtual showroom for them. It's all using the same plumbing. So, as you mentioned earlier, Frank, it's adapting a core technology to solve the same problem in an adjacent market. And that's it's been effective. Now the market has shifted again. Headsets are continuing to plummet. Having one headset per person is now very practical. We've got architecture companies who, in the RFP response, they'll just send a headset out with our software on it and just say, our portfolio's on there, our initial designs are on there. Click one button and we'll collaborate with you in live in real time. And of course, that's now a personal device. So the world adapts very quickly. The problem that's being solved by that immersive experience is still being solved, just in a slightly different way. So for us, it was just a lot of listen, look ahead a little bit, go to where the puck was going. Don't necessarily kind of get stuck in your way. Look forward a little bit and adapt.
Awesome. Great advice, Ian. Thank you.
Yeah, I think for us, we had certain ideas about how we were going to spend the year, and we were going to target certain financial goals. And then COVID hit North America, and we basically like crumpled up that plan and threw it away. And we're like, well, that's not going to happen. And but the experience was kind of odd, because in at least in the States, there was a sort of a month of silence in April as everybody was sort of scrambling, figuring out what to do next. And then gradually we started to get interest again, and it seemed like business continuity was actually starting to be maintained. And we actually ended up hitting our financial goals this year, closing another round of funding, which we didn't expect to close. And so, what we saw was a phenomenon that I first witnessed in 2008, after the financial crash. The expectation on the software side was that everybody would stop spending and everybody buckle up. There's going to be layoffs and everything. And what happened was not a whole lot on the software side, because the fall off in revenue from kind of routine spending kind of got taken up by the research spending, as people who were taking the opportunity of downtime to say, well, we know some new technologies are coming, at that time BIM. So let's tool up, because the economy is going to swing back up again, and we ought to be ready to have pole position at that time. I venture to say that I think the same thing is happening now. It's a different complexion. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And so what we're seeing now is, on this call and elsewhere, you see like a gazillion little AEC startups of people who were taking the opportunity of a boom are now taking the opportunity of a lull and actually trying to build up a new technological basis for the industry when people have time to pay attention to it.
Guys, I am blown away by your knowledge of your market space. Obviously, it's not surprising to you, but as an investor and some of my colleagues, you never obviously want to have somebody in the audience know more than you do on your own marketplace. Especially when you're pitching, but you guys really, really understand your customer, your market, and where you belong, which I think is very important going forward. Terrific. Hadrien, over to you, man.
Yeah, I always unmute because there's a little bit of noise behind, but I think for us, there's this whole trend about WebGL versus streaming. For those who don't really understand that, web-based 3D solutions are often programmed in WebGL. And this is a growing technology, but that still had some struggle in the past due to, for example, old browser like Internet Explorer, for example. So now it becomes more and more cross-platform. It can work also on your cell phone and everything. But for us, the quality that you can get through WebGL is still too much schematic. So we are, in terms of the pandemic, like we had to come up with a solution at the beginning of the year, which is basically streaming our existing application. So it's not an active solution in the sense that users cannot just go on a website and interact with it. But since the sales experience of a real estate asset is often led by a broker, for example, we were able to quickly come up with a solution so that on a website of a customer, you can have like a virtual room on which basically the people will take an appointment, like taking up a ticket, wait in line, and then speak with the advisor, the broker, and then look at this high-tech visual presentations. But it's something that we hope will come up faster, the streaming, because at some point, especially for the SaaS ideas that we have upcoming, we are asking ourselves, should we go for a WebGL solution, which is going to have less impact on the visual, but much more portability? Or should we stick to our very high-end visuals, but then having to use it through streaming because our normal computer or cell phone cannot generate those level of graphics? So there's still a lot of thinking and understanding of the upcoming technologies to be able to make sure we have a solution that will compensate the change on the market.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Hadrien. Seems all of you know exactly what direction you're heading and how to seize the moment. Ryan, again, over to you. Now, last but not least, again.
No worries. It's good to actually hear everyone else's responses. Yeah, so I guess if you guys didn't catch it, I was talking pretty fast in my presentation. We actually launched 2 of these products during the pandemic. And it's kind of a lot of companies would probably, delay the release or maybe hold it off. But we wanted to bring these products to the market, and we've been working on these for quite a while. So for us, it was just something that we had to take a chance on, and I think so far it's working out. And really, I think it's driven by some kind of overlying or underlying factors in the industry. So first is like the web and cloud kind of push that's going on with eventual 5G coming. We want everything to go digital. And that includes, being able to use your phone to do work. So, or an iPad on site or something like that. So we really wanted to have everything kind of fully web-based, browser-based, no installation, and really enhance someone's work so that they can really be in that software and kind of have it as their keystone software that they use. And really, that's what we're trying to get to. With the pandemic, it's being even more real, right? Just because you have reduced people on site, you have restrictions due to COVID, and so having a digital platform for your enterprise to really collaborate over is something that we see a direction for the future.
That Ryan, I just received a question from one of our online companies. Leads perfectly into the question is. Venture is in the tagline today. By definition, venture is taking a risk, doing something different. So it sounds to me, Ryan, that you guys just did that, and especially right into this pandemic, right? Anthony, Ian, Hadrien, what could you share that one thing, and then I'll have time for one more question after this, because I see there's another one. What could you share with the audience about, don't be afraid taking the risk? And can you give an example maybe that, Ryan just shared right in pandemic? They did something that is very risky, but obviously risk has reward. What can you share in that area, please, for our listener?
You know what? Disruption doesn't come from little increments. Like you got to swing for the fences. You need a big idea. You need a big kind of challenge. It's tough to get attention. It's tough to get funding. It's tough to justify on a piddling ROI. So I think you got to bite off a big challenging problem. And I think you've got to read the tea leaves a little bit. So I mean, there's obviously, I mean, we're looking at the upside of this disruption. I think all of us are lucky enough to have been able to adapt and maybe make a little bit of lemonade. But there's been a lot of layoffs in our industry, right? And I think some of the shift that we're seeing towards automation is due to people trying to do more with less, right? That's what automation does. That's why investing in technology and systems and processes, has that payoff. So I think, being conscious of what's happening in the industry and then picking your place and then going for it. Like you can't be shy. You gotta find that big problem and just go for it.
Great advice, Ian. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say personally, I was on another panel about a year and a half ago, and somebody asked me like, so did you always think you would start your own business? And I was like, oh my God, no. Like, the whole vision of my career was to be, a relatively important cog in a giant machine. And the thing is, like, you shouldn't take risks for the sake of taking risks. You should take risks because you want to get something accomplished. If there had been any other way that I could have figured out to do what we're trying to do without starting a business, I would have done it. Because a lot of stuff, for folks who are starting a business or contemplating it, you spend a lot of time not doing that thing that you really wanted to start a business to do. And so it's got to be kind of driven also by necessity of the vision you want to realize and what's the best way to realize it. For me, and I'm sure the other folks on this call, I mean, we all decided that the way to realize the vision we had was to have our own businesses. And so I would say, start, as Ian's kind of implying, start with the vision, make sure that this is the only way to do it because it's really hard. But if it is, don't let starting a business stand in your way to realizing the vision you have.
Awesome.
I think what you're saying, Anthony, is completely right. The kick to get a business is something already very risky in the beginning, and I don't know, for us anyways, it was a long ramp up in the first years. It's really when we started to work with real estate and 3D that it started to kick off. But I would say that still today, the type of risk that we take are always to push the boundaries of Unity. So Unity, like I said, is the gaming engine we're using. A lot of video game companies use this in a very, very good way. In terms of AEC, what you see on the market using Unity usually doesn't have that same level of visual quality. The interface running behind me, for example, is running in 6K, and I can travel from one place to another from a city, all in photorealism. So to be able to push the boundaries of the visual quality for us is something that I consider very risky, and we're still working on improving this a lot. So that would be for us.
That is great advice, guys. I'm a bit of a Tom Edison freak, and Thomas Edison used to say, vision without execution is nothing but hallucination. So kudos to you guys seeing the vision and grasping. He also used to say that, it's kind of like spending 99% is perspiration, 1% is inspiration. And certainly we as entrepreneurs spend a lot of time in the trenches. So look, we have 7 minutes left. I would like to ask one last question, and then I'm going to try to recap our conversation as best as I can for our audience as well. Please, a minute or so each, and then I'll close it off in two. Last question. What does the future look like for each of your organizations? And one, can you share with the audience on how we may do business in this ecosystem a little different in the future? You're certainly a perfect example of what you're doing already, but is there anything that you'd like to share on how it may look and how we may do business, looking down the road a couple of years in this new economy?
I'm gonna answer this question maybe a little obliquely. It's more about methodology for me. There's an instinct to listen to your customer, and while that's a really important part, the more important part is the ethnographic part. It's actually looking at what they're doing and understanding their problem. Typically, you're dealing with experts in their field who know that they've got pain, but they're not experts in innovation in your domain, in automation. So it's looking past what they're asking for to what they need, and building what they need, and recognizing that sometimes they're going to look at what you're proposing and not get it. They're going to go, no, I asked for this. Why are you giving me this? Because it takes that kind of disruption. They almost have to touch it and feel it to see how it's going to kind of rock their worlds. And that takes some guts. It takes some confidence. There's some risk there. But you have to have the courage of your convictions. It's really easy to get a little bit myopic, to get caught up in your own brilliance and the technology, and like, VR is the coolest thing in the world, and bring that to a kid's Christmas or birthday party 5 years ago, and you're the favorite uncle, and it's like, oh, this is going to change the world, and then you kind of hit the cold reality of business. So yeah, I think that the one thing that I would take away from this is really understand the problem, the roots of the problem, not just the superficial.
Thank you, Ian. Great advice.
Yeah, I mean, at least I think I'd say for us, our trajectory is that we hope we actually become less and less visible and more essential. There's sort of an arc that I noticed back when I was an IT director, and we put in WAN accelerators, and like everybody was talking about WAN accelerators, like gotta get WAN accelerators, who's got the best one? And then like within a couple of years, everybody stopped talking about it, but everybody had them. And they're still running, they're still there, quietly keeping everything going the way you need it to. And so, I mean, for us, that's kind of where we would like to be, quiet but essential. But I think, as part, the picture we're trying to fit into is sort of the industry accepting the reality that there is no one piece of software that is ever going to answer all of your needs forever. And any presentations to the contrary by any company should be looked at with deep skepticism. And so what you have to, where we think this is going, the whole industry is going, is to an increasingly interconnected ecosystem dependent on open source standards that actually allow people to slot in tools as they need it for different projects or different needs, and leave them aside when they're not working for them. And I think that's a much more dynamic world than AEC is used to as far as software technology goes.
Great insight, folks. Really, really great insight. All right, we've got 4 minutes left. I just need 2 minutes. So Hadrien and Ryan, what may the future look like on how we do business? Anybody want to jump in? Hadrien?
Okay, sorry. I thought you were going to speak, Ryan.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, my fault.
That's fine. Listen, there's so much to say there. I think to touch a little bit with what Anthony said also, essential is very important, less than visual. For us, we would like the visual to become the essential part of it. So it's kind of a complex issue here, but definitely scaling is important. When you have a business idea, you want to scale it, and technology is ever changing. There's every year after year, the pandemic brought some changes, not only in the technology, but in the behavior. So being able to have some kind of a framework that you can adapt to different needs, but to different also companion technologies is something very important. I am not the software engineer. I see a comment here, software developers need to be leaders. I'm the vision person behind SmartPixel. I'm the artist. My colleague and partners, Michael and Dave, for example, are the software engineers, so the ones who take care of this. But I value them a lot in the business, because without them, I could not have this Lego brick type of business where we can actually take bits and pieces here and there to grow and scale the company to further. So I think it's very, very important to have this knowledge.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hadrien. All right, Ryan.
How much time do we have?
We got 2 minutes, so I'm going to try to ask you if you can just share some thoughts real quick, and then I'll try to bring it home.
Sounds good. So yeah, I think Ian mentioned it earlier. We believe customer centricity is going to be a huge factor in the AEC industry. Historically, it hasn't always been the most collaborative environment, and so we really think that the way that construction companies and companies in the AEC industry deliver projects is going to be one thing where it's going to be more transparent, more traceable, and there's going to be a lot more information for each stakeholder to have and understand the project as it progresses. So I'll leave it at that.
Guys, I really enjoyed this time with you. Thank you again for the audience. One of my mentors is a gentleman named Jason White. Jason is the CIO for Interior Power Generation. He preaches that key performance indicators and standard operating procedures can be duplicated, but innovation is what sets companies apart. And you folks have certainly illustrated that. So I want to, first of all, thank our audience, our panel for participating today. and we are inspired and encouraged by their journeys and wish all continued success. For me personally, it's been very, very educational. We hope you were able to take something away from their stories and apply it to your business and make a difference right away. As we heard, companies have had to adapt to the changing environment and provide innovation that add value to the design and construction industry. It may have been a slow industry to change, as some of our panel pointed out, but the pandemic has significantly accelerated the interest and adoption of digital design techniques, and will certainly do the same in the construction industry overall. It's an estimated $1 trillion of infrastructure over the next 10 years in North America alone. This includes standardization, penetration, everything from language to protocols, build up of the acquired infrastructure backbone to support the big data, integration of the tools associated with the entire asset life cycles. Of course, it will be driven by the research that has been and is currently being done, the collaboration of industry, institutions, and by industry leaders like the ones here on stage today that have a clear vision of where they fit and they understand the complete life cycle and what it looks like. As an investor, even though I have 3 companies from the space in my portfolio, I will most definitely pay attention now more than ever, as the potential opportunities are significant. As a business in this environment, it will be important that you understand where you fit in, and also understand where you fit into this paradigm, as there will be many opportunities. So please take advantage of them. It has been my pleasure to spend some time with you today, representing Angel Investors Ontario and our 1,700 accredited investors. To our panel, to our audience, to CanBIM, thank you. Be kind, be safe, and continue to be innovative and thrive in the new economy. Have a wonderful day.
So long, folks.
Thanks, Frank.
Bye-bye.